Story 1. When Love Overcomes Pain.
It had been over a year since our 2-year-old daughter was struck by a car. But Emma, my beloved wife, still hadn't recovered from the loss. Time passed, but instead of healing her wound, it only made the pain more unbearable. Emma quit her job, which she had loved, cut ties with friends and family, and cried through the long nights. She would spend hours sorting through Lily's toys, clutching her clothes, and endlessly scrolling through photos of our daughter. It was as if Emma refused to let her go, even after life itself tried to force her to move on. I tried to be strong for her. At first, I thought this was part of the natural grieving process, that Emma just needed time. But month after month, her condition worsened. She was fading before my eyes. The breaking point came when Emma disappeared. She left to buy groceries, but never returned. For 2 days, I searched frantically, contacting the police, friends, and anyone who could help. Finally, we found her at the cemetery. She had spent all that time at Lily's grave, kneeling in the snow, wearing only a thin coat, leaning against the gravestone, sobbing. But what broke me most was her expression. Her eyes were empty, hollow, as though her soul had followed Lily into the grave. I realized then that I couldn't help her alone. Emma needed professional help. After a long discussion, she agreed to start therapy, and gradually she began to improve. Her doctor suggested that we move to a new home, somewhere without constant reminders of Lily. We took the advice and relocated to a similar apartment in another part of the city. For the first few months, things seemed to get better. Emma even started looking for a new job. But then everything changed. One night, I found her sitting on the kitchen floor. "I dreamt of Lily," she said quietly, staring at the wall. She was begging me to come for her. She said it was cold and dark. I tried to console her, but a few days later, it happened again. "She's there," Emma said, pointing to the wall. "I can hear her crying. She's calling for me every night. I'm going insane." Her desperation grew, and one night, she woke me up. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. "She's crying. It's Lily." I strained to listen, but there was nothing. Emma was convinced, though. The next day, our neighbors called me at work. They said if I didn't calm my wife down, they'd call the police. I rushed home to find Emma on the kitchen floor, drilling holes in the wall with a power drill. "Emma, what are you doing?" I shouted, panicked. "She's there. Let me save her," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "Lily is gone," I shouted back, unable to hold it in anymore. "She's not coming back. You have to let go." "No, I hear her crying. She's calling for me." Emma screamed, shaking with hysteria. I couldn't calm her down, no matter how hard I tried. Heartbroken, I saw no other option but to call for an ambulance. The paramedics arrived and gave Emma a strong sedative, and she fell asleep almost instantly. They offered to take her to the hospital, but I couldn't bring myself to let her go. Emma wasn't crazy. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. I wasn't sure what came after that, but after seeing the paramedics out and thanking them, I returned to the kitchen, my mind a storm of thoughts and silence. And then I heard it. A cry. A real, unmistakable child's cry. The sound came from the wall Emma had been drilling. For a moment, I thought I was losing my mind. I pressed my ear to the damaged wall. The crying was faint, strained, as if it took great effort for the child to make a sound. It wasn't just a cry, it was unhealthy, broken. Something was wrong. Could the neighbors have lied to me about not having kids? But wait, this wall faced the next building, not the apartment next door. There's no way they could have known. I listened again. Silence. Hoping to prove to myself I wasn't insane, I checked on Emma, who was still sleeping, and headed to the neighboring building. On the correct floor, I knocked on the door. "Their bell doesn't work. Don't bother," an elderly woman across the hall said, glaring at me. "What do you want here?" "Do they have any kids?" I asked. "Thank God no, what a blessing they don't," she spat. "Why would you say that?" "Junkies. Drunks. They're worthless. If only they'd die already," she hissed. Ignoring her venomous remarks, I pounded on the door again, desperate for an answer. No response. What if I was wrong? What if there was no child? But what if there was? I couldn't live with myself if I ignored it. After pacing for a while, I called the police. When the officers forced the door open, a stench of filth, urine and unwashed bodies hit us. The place was a disaster. Foil wrappers, syringes and rotting food were scattered everywhere. In the bathroom lay the body of a woman, lifeless and covered in blood. On the kitchen floor, an unconscious man reeked of alcohol. And then I saw it. A large, battered wooden cabinet stood against the wall adjoining our apartment. Something drew me to it. I can't explain why, but I felt like something of mine was in there. Ignoring the officer's warnings, I flung the cabinet doors open. Inside, in a shoebox, was a tiny baby, filthy and frail, lying on bare cardboard. My heart clenched at the sight. The baby's eyes were closed. Was I too late? "He's here!" I screamed, my voice breaking. "Over here." Later, we learned that the dead woman was the baby's mother. She had given birth a few days earlier in that squalid apartment. A drug overdose had caused severe bleeding, and she died unconscious. I still can't explain how Emma felt the baby's presence through the wall, long before he was even born, or how I heard his cries, despite his frail state. Relatives didn't want the child, so Emma and I decided to take him in. When Noah came to live with us, Emma found herself again. She smiled and laughed for the first time in months. And the most incredible thing? Noah has the same birthmark under his knee that our Lily had.
Story 2. Yrka.
That's enough for today. How are you feeling? Alex asked, his voice heavy with fatigue as he rose from his chair. No, Dylan and I still need to finish some calculations. You go ahead. We'll catch up later, Nathan replied, his attention fixed on the notebook, where he was busy scribbling numbers, occasionally checking the calculator. The men were surveyors, analyzing data from the day's field measurements. Soon, they needed to submit their report to determine if the site was suitable for constructing a massive car factory for a prominent company. Leaving the field tent where they had been working, Alex headed toward the nearby village where accommodations had been arranged for them. The path cut through an open field and usually took about 15 minutes. To pass the time, Alex pulled out his phone and called his girlfriend, Emma. As they talked, the field gradually sank into the darkness of night. It's getting dark fast tonight, Alex commented with a laugh. It feels like we've been talking for hours. It's been 45 minutes, actually, Emma corrected him. Alex glanced at his phone screen. She was right. Are you there yet? I want to go to bed soon, Emma asked. No, that's strange. I haven't taken any detours. There's only one road, it's straight. I walked it twice today, and it never took more than 15 minutes, Alex said, a hint of confusion creeping into his voice as he kept moving forward. Maybe Yrka's got you lost, Emma teased, giggling. Yrka? What's that? Alex asked, smirking. It's just us guys here, no Yrka. Not Yrka. Haven't you ever heard of it? Emma asked. Nope, Alex replied, raising an eyebrow. City folks, Emma chuckled. Yrka is an evil spirit that haunts fields at night. It confuses travelers, making them wander in circles on roads that should be straight. You think you're heading home, but the road never ends. Really? Alex chuckled at the absurdity. So what should I do? Set up camp? No. Eventually, Yrka shows itself to claim you. It calls out using the voices of dead relatives or friends. But whatever you do, don't turn around. And what happens if I do? Alex laughed, though uneasily. Despite Emma's silly tale, the fact remained. He'd been walking for over an hour on a path that should have taken 15 minutes. It takes your soul, I think. Yrka fears fire, though. Emma's voice abruptly cut off. Alex's phone battery had died. Night had fully fallen. Alex kept walking. At some point, he started running, but it didn't bring him any closer to the village. According to his watch, he'd been on the road for over 2 hours. From the tall grass beside the path, rustling sounds emerged. Until now, Alex had been pushing away uneasy thoughts, but this sound brought them flooding back. He froze. Whatever it was getting closer. Then a hedgehog scurried out, snuffling as it went on its way. "You scared me, little guy," Alex muttered, exhaling sharply. "I must have taken a wrong turn. If there's a road, it has to lead somewhere eventually." The sound of his own voice reassured him, and he continued walking. Hours passed, but Alex still couldn't find the village. "This is crazy. How did I mess this up so badly?" he thought, imagining the teasing from his colleagues in the morning when they found out he'd spent the night wandering the field. Then a noise came from a bush nearby. It wasn't the rustling of a hedgehog or a small animal. Something larger was moving through the undergrowth. Alex froze. The rustling grew louder, then stopped just a few meters away. "Alex?" A quiet voice called from the bushes. He froze. It was unmistakably the voice of his sister. "Alex, I've been trying to catch up since the station, but I couldn't. My foot stuck." The voice continued. "Grace, is that you?" Alex whispered, his hair standing on end. "Last summer, Alex, Emma, Grace, and a boyfriend went kayaking. They lost control of the boat in strong currents, and it capsized. Grace's boyfriend was rescued, but Grace was swept away. Her body was never found. Alex had blamed himself ever since. He hadn't been able to save her, but now, here she was, alive. "Grace, you survived. How? Wait, I'm coming." Alex ran toward the voice. Yrka or not, his sister was here. As he reached the bushes, a hedgehog darted out, startling him. Trying not to step on it, Alex tripped and fell. His phone flew out of his pocket, landing closer to the bush than he did. Reaching for it, he saw something in the screen's reflection. 2 glowing eyes. Reality struck him hard. Grace couldn't be here, in the middle of this field. Sensing his hesitation, Yrka extended a long, pale hand from the bushes. Its clawed fingers latched onto Alex's wrist. He pulled, but the grip was relentless. "Fire!" Emma's words echoed in his mind. As Yrka dragged him closer, Alex frantically searched his pockets. Finally, his hand closed around his lighter. Flicking it, he held the flame high. Yrka screeched a piercing cry like a bird's and recoiled. Alex scrambled to his feet and ran, but the creature followed. Behind him, branches snapped and grass rustled. Desperate, Alex grabbed his notebook and set it on fire. The flames forced Yrka back again. Seizing the moment, Alex found a haystack and threw the burning notebook into it. For the rest of the night, Alex fed the fire with anything he could find: branches, dry grass, even pieces of his clothing. Yrka circled like a vulture, using the voices of Alex's dead relatives to lure him from the fire. But Alex clung to Emma's warning. Terrified, he refused to turn his head. At dawn, the nightmare ended. Yrka vanished. When Alex reached the road, the village was just ahead. He had survived the night. His colleagues weren't so lucky. Dylan's body was found near the road, his face frozen in a silent scream. Nathan was found days later, 150 kilometers away, malnourished and unresponsive. He was still walking, his feet raw and bleeding. When Alex visited Nathan in the hospital, he was struck by a horrifying sight. Despite being restrained, Nathan's legs kept twitching, as if he was still walking.